How do you erase a 165 million year dinosaur dynasty in just 3 seconds? Look up at the sky. A mountain of fire, the size of Mount Everest, is screaming down at 45,000 miles per hour as the surface of the sun, turning the entire planet into a global broiler oven. You've heard the asteroid was the end, but for the survivors, the real horror was only beginning. Hold on tight. We are taking you on the most epic, chaotic, and deadly road trip through time. Earth during the Late Cretaceous period was a vibrant greenhouse paradise. There were no ice caps, the oceans were thriving. It was a globally interconnected ecosystem dominated by gigantic reptiles for over 160 million years. But high above, racing through the icy vacuum of space, a silent killer was zeroing in. Recent planetary research reveals this wasn't just local space rubble. It was a carbonaceous chondrite, a dark, primitive asteroid born in the freezing outer solar system far beyond Jupiter. Somehow, gravity slung it straight toward our tiny blue marble. This terrifying space rock was roughly 6 miles in diameter. To put that in perspective, if you set it down in the Mariana Trench, its top would still pierce the clouds. And it was moving with terrifying speed. It hurtled toward Earth at 45,000 miles per hour, 20 times faster than a rifle bullet. As it slammed into the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, the friction was instantaneous and catastrophic. The air in front of the asteroid compressed so violently that it superheated the surrounding gases. In the final seconds before impact, the leading edge of the asteroid was a blinding fireball, literally as hot as the surface of the sun. It took just 3 seconds for the massive rock to cross the atmosphere. 3 seconds to end an era. Striking the shallow waters off the modern-day Yucatan Peninsula, it didn't just hit the ground, it vaporized it. Releasing the energy of 10 billion atomic bombs, it punched a hole into the Earth's crust 20 miles deep and 120 miles wide. The bedrock behaved like liquid, rebounding into a ring of jagged mountains taller than the Himalayas in minutes. If this cosmic chaos is blowing your mind, hit that like button right now and tell us in the comments, do you think humanity could survive a rock like this today? But for the creatures living outside the immediate blast radius, the real danger wasn't the crater itself. It was what came out of it. The shocking blast wave radiated outward at supersonic speeds, instantly flattening forests and obliterating everything in a 1,000-mile radius. But that was just the appetizer. The impact vaporized trillions of tons of ocean water, rock, and crust, blasting it straight up into the sky. This debris was ejected entirely out of Earth's atmosphere and into the vacuum of space. Scientists even estimate that a fraction of this pulverized material traveled so fast it entirely escaped Earth's gravitational pull, raining down as ancient shrapnel on the Moon and Mars. But for the rest of it, gravity always wins. Minutes later, all that molten rock began to fall back down. As these microscopic glass and rock spheres re-entered the atmosphere, friction heated them to red hot. Billions of trillions of these tiny meteors filled the sky, turning the entire atmosphere into a global broiler oven. For hours, the sky became a radiant dome of lethal heat. Surface temperatures spiked over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. If an animal couldn't burrow or dive underwater, it was roasted alive. This intense thermal pulse ignited dry vegetation globally. Massive wildfires spread like a literal hellscape, reducing millennia-old forests to ash in a single afternoon. And then, the asteroid's impact was so unfathomably powerful that it sent seismic shockwaves ringing through the planet like a giant bell. We are talking about a magnitude 11 or even a magnitude 12 earthquake. For context, that is hundreds of times stronger than any earthquake ever recorded in human history. This seismic nightmare shook the globe for weeks, triggering massive landslides and churning the Earth's surface. All that chaotic energy had to go somewhere. Enter the Mega Tsunami. Forget modern 30-foot waves. This staggering wall of destruction initially stood over 1.5 miles high, over 7,000 feet of surging, boiling ocean. This monstrous wave raced outward, violently scouring the ocean floor. It raced across the Gulf of Mexico, slammed into coastlines, and radiated outward into the North Atlantic and South Pacific Oceans. It was so intense that it literally reversed deep ocean currents and reshaped the entire map of the continents. If you were a dinosaur standing on a beach thousands of miles away, you wouldn't have stood a chance. The water would have swallowed you whole. But surprisingly, some dinosaurs did survive this initial horrific day. The ones located on the far side of the planet weren't immediately obliterated by the blast wave. They weren't totally incinerated by the global infernos, and they were far enough inland to avoid being swept away by the mile-high Mega Tsunami. They survived the worst day in Earth's history, but their fate was already sealed. As the dust began to settle and the fires smoldered, the real extinction event began. Welcome to the nuclear winter. While not caused by weapons, the effect was identical. But modern science recently uncovered why this winter was so spectacularly lethal. For decades, we blamed soot and sulfur for blocking the sun. But in 2024, scientists analyzing the geological record discovered something worse: ultrafine silicate dust. This specific type of dust was incredibly light enough to stay suspended in the upper atmosphere for an unbelievably long time, up to 15 years. This toxic cocktail of soot, sulfur, and ultrafine dust acted like a thick, suffocating blanket wrapped tightly around the Earth. It blocked out sunlight so completely that the planet was plunged into perpetual darkness. Earth suddenly became a cold, black, quiet place. And the dinosaurs were absolutely not ready for it. Without sunlight, the planet's temperature plummeted. Global temperatures dropped by as much as 30 degrees Fahrenheit. The lush, tropical greenhouse world quickly froze over. And then, the food chain broke. Without sunlight, plants couldn't photosynthesize. They withered and died. In the oceans, phytoplankton, the foundation of the marine food web, suffered catastrophic collapse. With plants gone, herbivores like the mighty triceratops starved, wandering a desolate, frozen wasteland. And when the herbivores died, apex predators like the horrifying T-Rex suddenly had no food source. But it gets worse. Remember that vaporized rock? A lot of it was gypsum, which is loaded with sulfur. When that sulfur mixed with moisture in the atmosphere, it created highly concentrated acid rain. This toxic rain battered the Earth for years, turning the surface waters of the oceans into acid baths. The sudden spike in acidity dissolved the shells of marine life. Most ocean species simply didn't have the evolutionary time to adapt to such drastic, immediate changes. The oceans quickly became graveyards. These prolonged, freezing, dark, and highly acidic conditions, combined with the initial explosive blast, pushed roughly 75% of all life on Earth to total extinction. When the last of the great non-avian dinosaurs finally took their last breath, Earth was left as an empty, devastated wasteland. It was frozen, acidic, and dead. So, when did things finally get back to normal? Well, here's the ultimate twist. They never did. Earth didn't just rebuild after that apocalyptic winter. it completely reinvented itself. 1,000 years later, the planet was slowly starting to thaw. Sunlight was finally piercing through the thinning dust clouds. It was still freezing cold, and food was incredibly scarce, but life is stubborn. And life was ready to make a major comeback. In this new, wild world, the rules had changed. The giant reptiles were gone, which meant the little guys finally had a chance to shine. Among the very first complex life forms to reclaim the scarred landscape were fungi and ferns. These disaster species thrive on dead organic matter, and back then, there was a whole lot of dead matter to go around. Ferns exploded across the landscape, blanketing the scarred continents in a sea of vibrant green. Deep underground, our ancient mammalian ancestors had survived. These furry little critters were small, nocturnal, and highly adaptable. Needing barely any food, they ate insects, scavenged roots, and simply waited out the apocalypse in their burrows. Fast forward 100,000 years, and Earth was finally getting a little more lively. The skies were clearing, the temperatures were stabilizing, creatures about the size of modern-day raccoons were starting to bravely venture out and repopulate the continents. Slowly but surely, the oceans were once again teeming with life, led by resilient sharks and deep-sea survivors. And the dinosaurs? They didn't completely disappear. A small lineage of feathered theropods survived. You know them today as birds. Every pigeon or eagle is a direct descendant of the only dinosaurs adaptable enough to survive the apocalypse. Fast forward about 10 million years, and Earth had finally restored its biodiversity. The planet was green and vibrant once again. Only, it wasn't the same Earth at all. The age of the giant reptiles was officially over. It was now the age of mammals. With the massive predators out of the way, mammals went into overdrive. They evolved rapidly, taking over the ecological niches left behind by the dinosaurs. Earth never got back to its old self. It took millions of years to bounce back, but when it did, it set the stage for the world we live in today. But don't get me wrong, this new world wasn't exactly a peaceful paradise. It was still incredibly terrifying. As mammals grew bolder, they also grew bigger. Soon, you had absolute beasts like the Paraceratherium, a massive, hornless rhinoceros the size of a 2-story building, roaming the land. And in the oceans, evolution eventually cooked up the megalodon, a monstrous shark so massive it could bite a modern great white right in half. Their story is a dramatic reminder of how quickly life on Earth can change. One random space rock, one bad day, an entire 160 million year dynasty erased. But it's also a story of resilience. Life always finds a way. Out of the ashes of our planet's greatest disaster, a new world was born, one that eventually led to us. So next time you look at the night sky, remember, we live on a fragile blue marble in a dangerous universe. Stay curious, and let's hope the cosmos doesn't throw another fastball our way. If you enjoyed this trip through time, subscribe for more epic survival stories and like the video to support the channel. Thanks for watching.